Hello everyone and welcome to the One Stop Co-op Shop. This is Colin and today we are going to add to our forever games. So what we did about a year ago, Mike and I went through our list of games that we own, any that were 2019 and older, that we felt like we'll never get rid of in our collection. Now I have reviewed that and added 10 new games to that list. We can look now from 2020 and prior. If you want to see my prior list, check the link in the description below, as well as Mike's will be there too. His is a little bit shorter than mine. As we all know, it's Colin Mike. I'm going to show them in release order, starting from the oldest to the newest. I've got another 2011 game all the way up to 2 different 2020 games. Now, these games have to be solo or cooperative friendly, and I'm making one exception with one being solo only through a variant, but I'm going to take it. Without further ado, let's jump in and we'll start our list. Our 2011 game is Gears of War. Oh, this game, you guys, I kicked myself for not putting that in our list last year when I made my list for Forever Games. I was debating between that and Fireteam Zero. Now, I still have Fireteam Zero. I'm not getting rid of it. But I love Gears of War, and it's just different enough that I feel like it's worthy to have both of these in our collection. In this game, you're playing cards, you're moving around. This has the best line of sight I've ever seen in any game that I've played. You are tight on ammo, you're tight on all of your actions. All the cards in your hand give you the actions that you can take, plus there are reactions that you can take with cards, but every time you're discarding or using a card, you have 1 less health. And if your health goes all the way down to 0, aka you have no cards in your hand, you're down, and one of your teammates has to come and help you get back up. The game is tense, it's brutal, every dice roll is a challenge, and I love it. I really wish there was more content for this game, but I understand it's done. But even what's there between the different scenarios and the different characters that you can play, I love it. I don't even know the IP, I just know the board game, and I can't get enough of it. Like I said, best line of sight I have ever seen in a game, how it works. I highly recommend checking this one out if you can get it for cheap. That's Gears of War from 2011. This game is from 2013. It is Concordia. Now I have the Venus expansion. You don't need that to play solo or co-op. There's a specific small box that you can buy, which will give you solo and co-op variants, and the co-op variant is only for 2. But this game is phenomenal. This is one where you're playing cards out as your actions, but each card also has how you score points with that card. So the more cards you have that give you a specific type of victory point, the more points you'll gain for that specific type of action. So for an example, one might say you want to have all your colonists out. And if you have all of your colonists out on the board, get as many as you can out there. And then each card is going to give you 6 more points or whatever it is. It is so cool the different things you can do in this game. My favorite part is that each action is very simple and straightforward, yet the sum of all your actions throughout the game, all of a sudden you're scoring 150 points. And that I think is amazing. Not to mention, for the solo and co-op variant, when you play a specific card, on that card itself, it tells you how the AI will react. So not only are you going to be reviewing what you can do with that card, you can also look to see and know what the AI is going to do. What a great system. It's unique and interesting, and I love it. Yes, the theme is bland, and that's why in general I don't play a ton of Euros, but for this one, I don't even care. I love the card system. I love going on the board with my colonists and placing down those trading houses. What a great game. That is Concordia. Moving on to 2014, we have Xia Legends of a Drift System. Now this game I have an interesting past with. I originally got it in 2016, right when I started playing games, immediately sold it after playing it once. Didn't love it, felt like there was too much randomness, came back to it in 2020 and 2021, and now in 2022, it is a game I'm never getting rid of. In this game, what you're doing is you are a captain of a spaceship and you are trying to find fame in any way that you can possible. This could be through mining, this could be through harvesting, you could attack other ships, you can complete certain missions to be able to gain fame points. Essentially, it's a fame point racing game. Now, it's normally competitive 3 to 5 players, but there's a solo campaign and just a regular solo variant. But if you're playing this solo, I can't recommend enough the solo campaign. I actually have an entire campaign that's 10 different scenarios on our channel. You can check it out and see if it's something for you. There is a ton of dice rolling, you've got to be okay with that, but you've got painted ship miniatures, you're going to be leveling up your ship, you're going to be finding missions, you're going to be flying into stars. I love all the tiles and how they look. It's theoretically, you're just moving around. It's like a pick up and deliver, right? You're gonna roll your dice and move. It seems so simple, yet with all the pieces together, it creates this story. And each time you play, how the universe is set up, where things are within there, what your objectives are for the actual campaign, really makes this game. If you really enjoy sandbox games where you can find any ways that you want to earn your points or fame in this game, this is for you. It is the best sandbox space game I've ever played. That's Xia Legends of a Drift System. We'll now jump to 2016 and I have Arkham Horror the card game. Another game that I have a very interesting past with. I originally got it in 2016 when it came out, sold it a year later, and then got it back in 2018, and at this point I'm going strong. This game is in the similar vein as Lord of the Rings, the card game. You have decks that you pre-make before you start your scenario. You start your scenario, you play through it, but unlike Lord of the Rings, and what makes this game for me is the campaign. You are playing through 6 or 7 scenarios, it depends upon which ones you're doing, and you don't get to change your deck. You get to upgrade it with additional cards, but you're using that same deck, and what's fun about that is you have to be ready for everything. That also means that you very likely might lose a scenario, and that's okay. You just continue to move forward. That fail forward system works great in this game. Sometimes you die, and that, is very thematic. I will say this game is heavy in its theme, so if you don't love Arkham Horror, it might not be for you. But Arkham Horror is not my favorite theme, yet I still enjoy it, and the stories and experiences that the game provides is enough for me to keep this in my collection. I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. That is Arkham Horror the card game. My next game is also from 2016. It is Star Wars Rebellion. This is my cheat game. Technically, this is a 2 to 4 player only competitive game. However, there are 2 solid variants. One for the Empire, playing as the Empire, and one for playing as the Rebels for solo. And it's enough for me to keep it. And now that I've got someone like Barrett I can play with, and I ended up painting the miniatures, there's just no way for me I will ever get rid of this game. If you love the Star Wars theme, this game is for you. If you enjoy asymmetric games where one player has a very different goal than the other player, this game's for you. I love playing as the Rebels because what you're trying to do is hide from the Empire. You're trying to throw them off. You're trying to make them focus on one thing while you're doing something else. You're just trying to survive. But I also love playing the Empire, and there you've got all of these resources and you're just trying to find that rebel base. Once you find it, you destroy it and you win, but the time is running out, and so you've got to be careful not to get distracted by those rebels. They might taunt you to come to a location or sabotage one of your planets. Don't worry about it. You gotta focus on finding that base. But that's the fun part about the game, this give and take. I love it. You can do all the different things that you have in the game, in the movies themselves. For example, you can torture one of the leaders of the rebellion. You can actually turn one of them to the dark side. Oh, so cool. The game is thematic. The game is tense. It is very long. And there's lots of rules. So it is one that I don't play that often, but every time I've played it, I've had a great experience, and it's one that I just can't get rid of, and it will stay in my collection. That is Star Wars Rebellion. The next game on my list is a 2017 game, Fallout the board game. Now, I do not recommend just the base game. You're really going to want to buy the Atomic Bonds expansion. That provides a great solo and cooperative experience for this game. Think of Roombound Unbreakable Bonds expansion. It's like the same thing. It fixes everything for solo and co-op, can't recommend that enough. If you just get the base game, unless you love that IP, it's not that amazing. In this game, there's different scenarios that you play and you're trying to complete them, and there's these huge stack of encounter cards, and every time that you play, you can have different encounters because of them. Now, unlike what you think of as Eldritch Horror, where they're random, these are all based upon the specific scenario that you're playing, and yet it's branching paths. So one time you can play going for the Shield faction, and another time you can play going for the Star faction. And as you go down those specific roads, there's going to be different branching stories opening up. There's some 250 different cards that are in the encounter pile that you can find while you explore. The combat is fun and tense, and I love that. I love that the combat is always tense. It's always tight. I just did a playthrough of this one, and you can see how tight it can be. It's a game where I don't feel like you need to know the IP to still enjoy it, because I never played Fallout, and yet I enjoy it enough. I don't see this ever leaving my collection. All my minis are painted, and I would have to play the game at least 12 different times to see all the different sides of the different scenarios. But that does mean I have the base game and 2 expansions to make it worthwhile. So it's not a cheap game, but overall it's a game that's very similar to Runebound, and so it's one that I just can't see myself ever getting rid of. That's Fallout, the board game. Another 2017 game is Nemo's War, the 2nd edition. This one you're commanding the Nautilus across the seas, and you're trying to complete certain objectives, all dependent upon what your motive is throughout the game. There's, I think now, with the final version of the game, 6 or 7 different motives, and each one gives you different point values based upon the different actions you can have in the game. You're going to be sinking ships, you're going to be going on quests, you're going to be inciting rebellions, you're going to be increasing your notoriety, but you don't want to go too high or those stronger ships are going to come and try and take you out. You essentially want to survive until the end, and then if you do that, you can count your score and see how you do. I will say I do find the game to be a very significant challenge to get some of those higher scores, but really this game is about the journey, not the destination, and you really just want to survive. If you survive, I count that as a win, and then if you get a really good score, I count that as a double win. I do want to mention you have to be okay with rolling dice in this game, because every turn you're rolling dice to determine your amounts of actions, and sometimes you can actually have a 0 action turn, which is pretty brutal. But overall, with all of the exploration that you can do, this is also a sandboxy game where you can choose the ways you want to score your points, and you can do certain things to stay alive, but it doesn't have to be equatable to your motive. You just know that you'll score more points if you follow your motive along. Really enjoy that part of the game. The only thing I do not recommend is don't play this co-op or competitive. It does have a co-op and a competitive variant. I don't think it's great. I think the solo is where it's at. That's really where this game was derived from, and you can tell. It is a great solo experience. I usually find that when I'm playing solo, having lots of dice rolls really isn't as much of a problem as when you're playing with other players, and you might get really frustrated, but that's just me. There we have it. That's Nemo's War from 2017. We now jump to 2019 and we have It's a Wonderful World. This game can play up to 5 players, normally competitive, but also has a solo mode. I love card drafting. This game is card drafting to a T with some amazing engine building, and that's because of how the card play works. You're going to draft your cards one at a time. After that, you are going to generate resources, but you can use those resources to build cards that will generate resources later in that same turn, and then you can put those ones on other cards which will then generate resources. It's this really fun, you're looking at what resources you're going to make, which cards you want to have, which ones are going to give you points, which ones are going to work with you, with what your strategy is. Oh, it's so cool. And there are a total of 2 campaigns. I have played one with 4 people, actually played with 5 people, and it was a great experience. It was, I would say that the story was a little light, didn't really need it anyways, but the actual gameplay was really fun. Doing the drafting 5 different times, the person at the end of that 5th game ended up being the winner. Overall, great game. You can even play those campaigns solo if you enjoy the idea of drafting cards and trying to create an engine for yourself, and each time you play you're going to see totally different cards. I cannot recommend It's a Wonderful World enough. I will say, comparatively to something like Seven Wonders, this game, because they don't have level, Era 1, Era 2, and Era 3 cards, sometimes you'll see the most amazing cards in that first round and you can't draft them because you can't build them. And you don't want to have them sitting out there. You want to have cards that will build you more resources. So sometimes I get frustrated with that, but other than that, the game is phenomenal. That's It's a Wonderful World from 2019. We're now moving into 2020, and I have Kingdom Rush Rift in Time. This game is a polyomino tower defense game. I love it. First of all, I loved the game on my phone. I used to play that game all the time. I had to remove it because sometimes it would be too long that I was playing it. But in this game, you are controlling a hero just like you are in the mobile app. You're also placing out towers, but there's lots of fun cooperative elements where if I don't play a tower, I can actually level it up and give it to somebody else. If I play a tower out on the table, then I can use its polyomino piece to damage one of the hordes that's running towards the exit or the castle, whatever it is. And so you're trying to protect that location. You have all these different scenarios. There's 10 in the base box, and then I have all the expansions for it to date. I have the other one that's the elemental one, I think, coming. Oh, it looks so great. These minis I actually did paint, and I love how they look. They are so cool. They're so big. Those bosses look amazing. This game has a great table presence. Every time I bring it out on the table, people are oohing and eyeing and want to try it. It also is not a long game to play. I'd say the biggest part of this game that takes a while is setup and teardown. Other than that, the gameplay itself, 45 minutes to an hour, even with 4 players. Definitely a recommendation from me. I love it. It's one I'm never going to get rid of. The last game on my list is Dice Throne Adventures. This is from 2020 as well. This is a cooperative expansion for regular Dice Throne. It is essentially a dungeon crawler where you're going through 8 different levels. You're also fighting a boss after each level. With your heroes, you're leveling them up. You're moving across the board. You can help each other by helping take out different enemies, or you can play your instance on each other. It is great. Every time I've played it, I've enjoyed it. I will say I've only played either solo or 2-player. I don't know how great it would be 3-player plus in the cooperative variant. 2 or 1 work great. And what's awesome is you first do this dungeon crawl. You're going through revealing tiles, finding enemies, taking these little minions out, and then you go and fight a first boss. Then you do the same thing for a second dungeon. Then you fight a second boss. All I wish is that they would come out with a few more bosses so you could vary those bosses up. Otherwise, the game is fun, it's quick, it's Yahtzee. You're rolling your dice up to 3 times, and then whatever symbols you have left, you can trigger them. Or if you have numbers that, a 1 through a 6, you can trigger something for that. I love all of that. It's easy to play. My kids can play it, but also adults can play it and enjoy it. So that's the final game I'm adding to my Forever Games, Dice Throne Adventures. There you have it, 10 games plus the 25 before. I now have 35 Forever Games. These games will never leave my collection. What's going to happen when that gets over to 100? I don't know. Not really sure. I'll have to talk to my wife. Make sure to be on the lookout for Mike's video for his updated list. It might have 1 or 2 games on it. That's my guess. And as always, thank you so much for watching our channel. I'll catch you at the next stop.